Good evening. I am so excited to be with you all this evening and welcome each of you. My name is Bette Williams and I am president of the Association of Junior Leagues and a member of the Junior League of Columbia, South Carolina. This is going to be a great night. 100 years ago today, on August 18th, the 19th Amendment to the Constitution was ratified when Tennessee became the 36th state to approve granting women the right to vote. But not all women. Women of color were excluded and denied this fundamental civic responsibility for many, many more decades. As an organization that develops women, all women, it is incumbent upon us as civic leaders to acknowledge this fact and understand the wider story surrounding the fight for women's suffrage in the United States. The suffrage story has many layers and even more heroines, some of whom are less known than others, and many whose names are lost to history. A history that has been glorified at the expense of so many brave, persistent, and persecuted women of color. The 19th Amendment was one critical step to women's suffrage. The drive for full voting access for women of Mexican, Asian, Chinese, Korean, and indigenous heritages would take several more pieces of landmark legislation and span the next several decades, culminating with the voting rights of 1964. Junior leagues throughout our history have been nonpartisan voices in the get out to vote work, including the Junior League of St. Louis, which was formed to play an integral role in the suffragette movement. Voting is the way we share our thoughts and opinions on issues of importance. And tonight is not about candidates, policies, or politics, but rather it is a celebration of our constitutional right as women, regardless of our political affiliation, to express ourselves and to identify how we think our government can help us build a more just and equitable society. This evening, as we look forward to exploring the more complete story, I'm excited to launch this panel discussion and introduce to you our very special guest, Mandy Moore. Mandy, otherwise known to many of you as Rebecca on the critically acclaimed NBC show This Is Us, is a Grammy and Golden Globe nominated actress, singer, and songwriter. And Mandy continues to enjoy versatility in a career marked by memorable performances in primetime television, independent features, and studio films. But Mandy also has a long history of civic engagement. In 2008, she joined the global health organization PSI as a global ambassador. And on her first trip with them, she helped launch a distribution of 3 million insecticide-treated mosquito nets in South Sudan and Cameroon. And she visited both countries to launch the distribution and joined a bipartisan group of U.S. congressional staffers in Cameroon to learn how partnership plays a critical role in covering an entire country with long-lasting insecticide-treated nets. In 2001, Mandy was chosen by the United Nations as a malaria champion alongside President George W. Bush, Ban Ki-moon, and Awa Kolsek. Today, Mandy serves as an ambassador to When We All Vote, the nonprofit, nonpartisan organization here with us this evening to increase participation in every election and close the race and age voting gap. And it now gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Mandy Moore.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, Bette. I am so honored to be here with all of you this evening. Thank you to Stephanie and Jordan and all of you lovely ladies, obviously, for having me here tonight as an ambassador for When We All Vote. As you know, as Bette just mentioned, today marks the centennial of the passing of the 19th Amendment, which gave women the constitutional right to vote. From the passing of the 19th Amendment to the Voting Rights Act of 1965, women, and especially women of color, have continued to be at the forefront in the fight for equality and equal representation in our democracy. As individuals and mothers and partners and leaders in America, we are the backbone of this country. You know, for the last 5 midterm elections, women have turned out to vote at higher rates than men. We not only understand the importance of voting, but the impact that voting has on all aspects of our lives and the lives of our family and our friends and our community. From our state representatives to district attorneys to judges and mayors, all the way up the ballot to the President of the United States, every single position that we vote for plays a role in shaping the policies that affect our day-to-day lives. But being a woman voter isn't just about focusing on the future. Tonight, it's also about remembering the history that brought us here. When we vote, we honor not only the women who fought so passionately to guarantee that right with the 19th Amendment, but also the women who continued its fight after its passage to ensure that women would be able to exercise those rights in years to come. It's also about recognizing the needs of the present, because we're living in really uncertain times right now. And I think that shows how important it is to make sure that we are all registered and we're all equipped with the tools and the knowledge and the resources that we need in order to get out and vote this November. And that's what makes this call that we're having right now and tonight all the more urgent and necessary. When women lead, everything changes. We get things done. We take action, as we always have, to ensure a better and brighter future for generations to come. There are a roster of really incredible women on this call tonight who are here to talk about the power of your vote and how you can play a more active role in your families and your communities in the days ahead. So with that, I want to thank you again for having me here and letting me say my little spiel, and to thank all of you for doing such important work. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Charlita Hatch.
Thank you, Mandy. In addition to all of the other accolades that you have, we would love for you to add the Junior League to your list. We have a wonderful Junior League of Los Angeles, and we would love to have you anytime. Thank you so much.
Count me in.
So, everyone, I am Charlita Hatch, and I am the 95th president of the Junior League of Charlotte and the co-sponsor for this evening's event. And I am just so elated to be here. We have a wonderful panel discussion being led by our moderator, Zena Martin, who is an at-large director for AJLI, as well as the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee Chair. So without further ado, let's get into this conversation. I'm going to hand it over to Zena.
Hello, Charlita. Thank you so much for that. So we are junior leaguers and we know how to adapt. I have to tell you that, of course, as soon as we just started, the heavens opened up, huge storm. I lost my Wi-Fi, but I already had my phone ready to go. So please bear with me. I am super, super excited to introduce our panelists this evening. First of all, we have Stephanie Young, who serves as the Chief Officer for Culture, Communications, and Media Partnerships at When We All Vote, which is a nonpartisan voting initiative launched by Michelle Obama. She has strategic communications, public engagement, and content creation experience in the public and private sectors with organizations such as the Obama White House, Congressional Leadership, NBC Universal, and BET. During her time in the White House, Stephanie had the unique opportunity to serve in two critical roles as the Associate Communications Director and subsequently as the Senior Public Engagement Advisor. In these roles, she led the press strategy around domestic policy announcements and created and managed critical relationships for the president in the African American community. Next, we have Jordan Brooks, who is the executive director of the United State of Women, which is a nonprofit dedicated to being the megaphone for gender equality and organizing women around the country. Prior to that role, she spent nearly 8 years in the Obama White House in various capacities, from the office of the vice president to the office of the first lady, and the office of public engagement, with her final position being the deputy executive director of the White House Council on Women and Girls. In this position, she oversaw the Obama administration's policy and outreach work on a large variety of issues as they related to the lives of women and girls across the country and around the world. Oh my goodness, we are so fortunate to have such an esteemed panel. I'm super excited. Okay, so let's just, before we jump in, I do want to just take a moment and reiterate something that Bet said, which is, basically exercising our right to vote is an important action for every woman, regardless of what our politics are. Almost all of the women I know care about the economy, pay equity, our health, our family's health, etc. Also, while we are here tonight honoring the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment's ratification, as Bet said, we know it took decades until this right was also extended to Black women, and actually I would say they fought for it, and other women of color, so we will be mindful of that as well. Okay, so I'm going to start off with some questions from me, and then I'm going to pose some questions for both of you from our members who emailed them in to us. So starting with you, Stephanie, why is the history of the 19th Amendment so complicated?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me and Jordan. We're so happy to be with you all. I see all the comments in the chat. We will give you information about this pen. It's actually a bobby pin, so we could talk about that a little later. And Zena, I'm so impressed with you holding your phone right now. So kudos to
Girl, you just have to roll with it.
You are working it out. Well, look, I think it's extremely complicated just because anything that I think is worth having, worth fighting for, is ultimately complicated. And the way that, our country came together, there were a lot of pitfalls in between. It was never a perfect union. We are always striving to really make the promise of this country, the practice of this country in all different forms and facets. And needless to say, in the 1900s, it was a completely and totally different world. I am the granddaughter of sharecroppers, and my grandmother was born in 1913. And she voted in every election when she could do it so freely and fairly. But we have seen progress inch by inch, little by little, sometimes big bites, sometimes small bites over the last century. And I'm just so grateful for where we are right now. I'm so grateful for organizations like the Junior League that are really working to beyond cultivate, but really to empower women to take action in a multitude of ways and really to take ownership of their communities. That is so critically and very important. And even the Junior League has a history of moving forward, in the direction of greater access for everyone. And unfortunately, the way that our voting system started in this country is for men, and it was for white landowning men. And then eventually, little by little, first African Americans did receive the right to vote right after, or right before Reconstruction began, after the Emancipation Proclamation. And then through Black codes and through other voter suppression tactics, that right was pretty much taken away. And in the 1900s, there were so many women that stood up. It wasn't just the women that we see every day. There was Sojourner Truth. There was, a number of women from Black sororities like Delta Sigma Theta and Alpha Kappa Alpha who participate in the suffrage movement. There was even Native American women and Asian American women and Latinas. And I encourage everybody to go to whenweallvote.org or When We All Vote on Instagram and scroll through our story. We have highlighted some of these other women that you may not have heard of. So it was a full court press by so many. It just wasn't by a few. And, the progress that we are experiencing today is because people wanted to sacrifice for us. So it pains me to see that sometimes we don't take the opportunity to do this. This is our civic duty. This is our right as American citizens to actually vote, when so many people sacrifice for our opportunity to do that. Our mothers, our fathers, our grandmothers, our great grandmothers. So it's so important that we recognize the history, even though it's complicated, respect it, and move forward and figure out new ways that we can all work together to create more access for people right now who may face barriers at the polls.
I love that. That's exactly right. The working together, acknowledge, respect, apologies for the thunder and lightning, but acknowledge, respect, and let's just keep moving for sure. So this is a question for both of you, and I'll start with Jordan. As a woman, what does having the right to vote mean to you?
Well, Sina, thank you. And incredible that you're doing this right now with the thunder all around you. It's really amazing how we all adapt when we need to.
We do.
And I just want to say, again, Steph's mentioned this, but thank you so much to the Junior League and to all of you for having us. I think, we are so grateful for all of the women on this call and all of the incredible action we know you take every day to help your communities. And hopefully you'll take with us to continue to do the work to make sure everyone has access to the ballot box this year and always. So, for me, having the right to vote is so deeply important because all of the change, so much of the change that we see is really happening very locally in our communities. And so, Mandy mentioned this, but really thinking about how we can vote in every election is so important to me. So, when I was a young girl, I always remembered watching the news with my parents. I grew up very civically engaged with them. And I was so excited about the first day I was able to vote. And I remember being away at college, actually, I had to absentee vote and my ballot didn't come on time. And I remember it was 2004. It was my first election to vote in. I was 18 years old. I was so excited. My ballot didn't come. So I tried to figure out if there was any way I could go home, if there was any way I could get from Indiana to New York to make sure I could to be able to vote. And it just didn't work. And so we need to make sure that all voting is easy to access, is helpful for people, and we can make this work for everyone, especially during this pandemic. So I will just say, we want to make sure voter access is really is easy for people this election. And so that's why when we all vote in the United States of Women are doing this together. As a woman, particularly, there are so many issues that I care about, from equal pay to childcare access to good education to really making sure we're talking about ending violence against women and girls. So much of that and so much of the work that really happens because we elect the representatives to think about those issues across the country, whether that is in a local election or whether that is for Congress and president. It is really important that we are thinking about those issues that we care about every day. And for me, those are the things I think about and things that our United States of Women membership think about all day. And I know some of the things that the Junior League members think about every day too. How are these laws affecting our families, affecting the people that we are, really working next to and taking care of every day. And for women, I think, we really think about those around us so much every day. And I think I really think about that when going to the ballot box. And that is why having the right to vote is so important to me. Steph, what about you?
Yes, definitely. And I have one quick thing before Stephanie said. I would just say that I think that it is so important that not only are we thinking about it, but what's so great about both of your organizations is that we're acting on it as well. And we're asking our local and, national, federal politicians to act on these issues that are so important to us. Yeah. So definitely.
Yeah, just to expand on that a little bit, I would say that, when you do go into the voting booth, obviously it's private, right? You're in there, you're making your decisions. We have created a resource hub on when we all vote to make sure that you're able to see who's on your ballot ahead of time through an organization that we're working with called Ballot Ready, so that you don't go into the voting booth and you don't know who you're voting for. You can read up on all of these people. All this information is public information. It's a nonpartisan organization that helps to create confidence in voters, because we all have been in those situations where we're like, what is this ballot initiative and who is this judge? And I never knew this race was coming up or would be on my ballot. So this is a way for you to do homework ahead of time so that you can make sure that you're a confident voter. But what I would urge, Jordan mentioned this, we're always thinking about other people. And when you go in the voting booth, you got to think about other people too. And you can't just think about yourself, but you're thinking about your children, you're thinking about your parents, you're thinking about, the folks that you work with, the people that you go to church with or synagogue or whatever, religion you are. You're thinking about the people that are in your life, and you're making decisions for you, but you're making decisions for other people. And I do think, just like we get excited to celebrate the 4th of July, you go into Target, you got all the tchotchkes, you got a t-shirt, you got flags, we should do the same thing for voting, because it should be as expressive, like to be a proud American. What is a way to show your love for this country it is to impact its direction wherever that goes, right? And going in the voting booth and thinking about other people, but also voting your values, whatever those are. This is the thing. When you sit out, there's somebody else is speaking for you. And I think that we get caught up when we think, oh, I really don't see how this office impacts my life. We all do that at times, but from working in most of the federal government, all the way to the White House, I know how every office actually impacts your life. And I think the pandemic that we find ourselves in now, but regardless, just this moment as a whole, like we have some time to be with the people we love. We also have some time to, I think, see how every office really does impact your life, your children's life, their well-being. So it's so critically important that we do vote, in every election, and we think about other people when we're in the booth, and we're making sure that we're staying true to who we are, our values, and our core values as individuals. And one stat and then I'll turn it back over to Zena to ask more questions. But 100 million people didn't vote in 2016. 100 million. And when you talk about parties, that's the largest political party. Those people, and they're eligible.
The apathy party, yeah.
Yeah, eligible. So.
Yeah.
That averaged out to about 48% of Americans who actually voted. And I was so warped by like how bad our voting numbers were. I said, oh, well, it's almost half. Well, in countries that do really well with voting, like Denmark and others, 98% of their population votes. So how do you have like an active, living democracy when the people aren't a part of it? And I think that we've become comfortable in this country for a multitude of different reasons. And we've kind of like gone to our little crowds, and this is our little neighborhood. This is our little home. And I'm not worried. The lights come on. I don't have to worry about where the water's coming from. I flush a toilet, things flush down it. And I think we've become a little spoiled, and we forget that like we have to be active members in this society from the community level, up. And Jordan can tell you the majority of women who get into politics and who become a mayor or who become a congresswoman or serve in the House of Representatives, they start out on the school board. So we know that women are jumping in even more. They're running for office at higher rates. But it all starts from a little spark of them saying, what can I do to invest in this place that I love so much and ensure that every child in this community has the opportunity to succeed, and things are on a level playing field for everybody. So we all have a role, and that's the beauty about democracy. And we can all disagree. We can all think about different ways we want things to happen. I don't like that way. I don't like this. It doesn't matter. We all have a voice, and we should all be able to use it.
Love that. Your voice, your vote. So amazing. Okay, next question is for both of you, and I'll start with you, Stephanie, if you don't need a sip of water. Basically, what prompted each of you to get involved in your organizations where you are now?
Well, after I left the White House, I can't tell you all how stressful it is to work in jobs like that. Jordan and I had many a nights we were there at midnight and then back at like 6 or 7 a.m. And I'm not kidding you. Like my left eye was twitching and I thought people could see it, but I realized nobody could see it. I could only feel it. So there's so much stress working in the government, long hours. But it's so inspiring to do work every day that honestly is about moving a bigger picture forward, being a part of what I believe to be, progress, ensuring that, I'm representing not only, people potentially like me, but I'm representing a point of view that I think is very important, and I'm able to be a voice to that. And then I'm also really able to help people. I think that the promise of this country, which has inspired so many people to come here, live here, move here, be motivated by it. All of our different movements have inspired movements all over this world. We have been a beacon of light, and I love this country. And I don't think I realized how much I did until I was absolutely in the White House and working on behalf of the American people every day. Cause that is a sacrifice. And I think one thing is really important, because I know there's a lot of moms on the call, but your children really pick up what you do, everything. I'm sure you know that. So if you vote, they vote. If you're civically engaged, they're civically engaged. If you are in the community doing good things, your children will follow suit. So my parents really opened the door for me. They were always very civically engaged. I'm from Atlanta, so my father is actually he's a preacher. He was a bishop in the AME church, so he was always very active in the community. Wasn't just not just on Sundays or special days, but he made sure that his voice was heard, and the voice of the community that he represented was heard at every different level of government. So I got to see that. I also got a chance to live in South Africa during the transition of apartheid to democracy, and I could see, when a healthy country comes together and gives the people access and opportunity to vote, they come out in droves. I remember the first Democratic election when Nelson Mandela was elected, and the electricity in the air, and seeing the organization of people coming together, everyday people coming together to fight for what was right, what was good, what was just. I've been totally inspired. I think throughout my entire childhood, I didn't even realize it, and it ended me up in work in the White House, which was a great experience and opportunity. But I left and went to the private sector and tried to stay there as much as I could to be normal, and then I got sucked right back in when my old bosses called me over to help with When We All Vote. And I know how important voting is. I know how important civic engagement is. And I know how important it is to do it in a way where we're reaching people that aren't paying attention or that don't think that they matter. And we give them an opportunity to know that they do, and their voice is just as important as anybody else's. So that's a long way of answering that question. So
it was a great way to answer it. What about you, Jordan? Thank you. What about you, Jordan?
Well, and I'm always so happy that Steph's back from the private sector and working back with us again. She and I spent a number of long nights together for many, many years. And, I think the thing that brought me to the United States of Women was that we built the United States of Women on the fact that so many women's voices around the country were not being amplified in the way that they should. So many women around the country were doing incredible work locally, specifically in their communities, finding the solutions to the problems we faced on all issues across the spectrum of gender equity. And we wanted to make sure that those women were talking to each other, were connecting to each other, were convening with each other, were sharing those best practices. And so we started the United States of Women really to do just that, to make sure we were being that connective tissue of organizations and individuals across the country who were sharing best practices on women's issues and on gender equity issues and the solutions we could find for them. And so, we really, when we left, we felt like we needed to make sure that this was a nonprofit working on the outside of government to really bring everybody together, because, I saw someone say this in the chat earlier, all issues are women's issues. Every issue to me is a gender issue. And that's why we're so excited to be talking about voting right now. I think so many people feel like, they vote for various different reasons. Stephanie said, vote your values in whatever way that is. And that's so true. Everybody votes for a very different reason. And we want to make sure that women's voices are amplified in every way that they're thinking about voting. And so the reason I'm so excited and I get up every day to go to work to run the United States of Women is because we have the ability to be able to bring people together to share what they're doing, but also really to amplify those voices of women on the ground who are leading, just like all of the Junior League members on this call that are leading in your communities. And I think the other piece of that that's so important is, we started the Gender Equity Voting Collaborative in partnership with When We All Vote, because we recognized we could do the same thing for women's organizations talking about voting, really making sure that we could bring people together to say, how are you helping register women in your community? How are you helping figure out how women can get how women can talk to their communities about getting mail-in ballots? How can we figure all of those things out? And to me, just what Stephanie said, I think so many people think that being civically engaged is hard. Being civically engaged is something that you do every day, and you think about it every day. And so we are trying to make sure that all women across the country really know that they're being civically engaged by working on an issue that matters to them, and then also by voting. And so we really want to make sure that we are bringing people together to think about that. And that's what brings me excitement about joining the United States of Women, and why we get up and go to work every day, honestly.
That's fantastic. And it also seems, just on what I know about both of your organizations, that you're bringing in a lot of young women, and that's so important as well. I saw some amazing stat about how many people will be turning 18 before the registration deadline. So that's great. We've got
millions of people.
Yes, millions. Exactly. Okay, wonderful. Stephanie, what would you say is the most exciting thing that has happened for women's equity since you became involved in the movement, as it were?
Yeah, I would say one of the most exciting things from my point of view, and I feel like Jordan absolutely has probably a much different perspective too, especially on the policy side. But for me, is the amount of women that have jumped into, I would say, into politics, who've jumped into service. We have the highest number of women in Congress right now in this moment. We have a woman that will be a candidate for vice president. So we're seeing women taking big strides and big leaps in politics, which is so important considering all of us collectively, we vote more than men do. But beyond that, it's so important to have, the diversity at the table when we are talking about issues that impact our lives, from jobs to the economy to healthcare, all of these things. Women look at these issues differently, and we're nuanced amongst ourselves. So we don't all think about these things in the same way either, but it is so important to have women at the table. And one thing that I could see a shift in is just the amount of children and families and the way that they were supported with family paid leave. And I know that when Jordan and I worked at the White House, that was a really big deal for the team to make sure that people had the opportunity to. Men went on paternity leave just as long as women did, which was huge. But it was creating this cultural shift that said families and having a family was okay. And there's nothing bad about bringing your baby to work if you need it to, or there is nothing bad about having your baby on a call. I hope that, I know because we're quarantined where I am, and I know you all are quarantined potentially where you are as well. I don't know how many babies or kids you've seen on calls, but it's like, I think that's the best thing that could happen. It's not just for women and men, babies crying, people having temper tantrums, but really normalizing family life. And I think that you only do that when you actually have women in power in certain positions and places that can influence the way you're thinking about these things. So that's just from my perspective, but I'm sure Jordan has something a little different to probably add considering her work.
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in, Steph, just to add, I think seeing so many women run specifically locally has been so unbelievably exciting to see. As Stephanie mentioned, most women who end up in higher political office, statewide or national office, start in the school board or local city council. And that has been to see so many of our partner organizations, like Vote Run Lead and so many organizations that are working to train young women and women of all generations, honestly, to run for office, have incredible numbers of people coming to them every day, which is really, really exciting. So that's been one of those things. And I will also say that the normalizing of talking about things that frequently used to be considered like issues we didn't talk about, and issues that were, things that we only talked about at home, with maybe whispered with our girlfriends. I've seen so many people talk about specifically paid family leave. Steph was talking about it. Paid sick days right now, so deeply important. The normalization of making sure that every person has a paid sick day to take off, especially right now, is so deeply important. And we've seen so much progress on that. Even just having conversations about the pay gap, having conversations about the fact that, particularly just a couple of days ago was Black Women's Equal Pay Day. Black women on average are making 62 cents to the dollar for every average white man. That's the fact that we're just having that conversation, and then we're even making sure that we're pushing companies to showcase their pay gaps is huge and so important. And the fact that we're normalizing conversations, I think about this a lot because my start in the movement really came from the violence against women advocacy space. The fact that we're starting to have conversations about, particularly, and about sexual assaults generally across this country has been really, really important to make sure that we are saying that, gender equity and the ability for young women particularly, but women across the country, to have equitable access to all sorts of things has been so deeply interesting on the progress side. And so many people are voting because they care about those issues. And so I think really making sure that we continue to talk about the ways that, your vote is affected in every single local election, I think is really important, because a lot of people I'm seeing in the chat also, people are saying, where can we find ways to research our local elected officials on their issues? I think it's so important for us to make sure that we're talking about that as well. So, I think there's a ton of exciting stuff happening for gender equity every day, and so many barriers that are being broken, so many incredible women that are doing that work.
Yes, that is so true. It's great. And it's really been interesting to see kind of the shift with Junior League. We have lots more, so many more of our members are working full time outside of the home, although not now, we're more or less working at home, but, and we have babies who come into our meetings all the time and all of that. And we focus on, trafficking and period poverty and, diaper issues, diaper poverty. So yes, these are super, super important issues.
I'm
so
excited talking about that. Sorry, I was
Yeah.
going to say that the fact that we're even talking about those issues on this call is incredible. So
Yeah. Awesome. I love it. So we're doing good things. That's great. So what for both of you, what's next? What key things have to happen for women to bridge the voting equity gap?
Steph, you want to start?
Sure.
I'll turn that to you. You can start there.
I think the biggest thing that we can say what's next for everybody is really to take specific action. So for us, When We All Vote and the United States of Women are partnering together to do what we're calling our When All Women Vote Week of Action this week. You guys are a big part of our exciting action this week, but we are really having people register on our United States of Women site. There's a link down here where you can register for what we're calling our couch party on Thursday evening. We've hosted a bunch of these in partnership with When We All Vote has hosted a bunch of these. We'll have Valerie Jarrett and Samantha Berry, who's the editor of Glamour, and a few other special guests that we'll be announcing tomorrow will be joining us, really to make sure that we are talking about the importance of women's voices, but also then really to make sure we are taking action right away, right there. So we'll have a really great DJ Diamond Cuts, spinning while we're doing this. And we will be having people texting voters for those 2 hours on the back end of the couch party, really to make sure people are registered to vote and people can make a plan to vote across this country. So that's the first thing. Second thing I will say is make sure you have a plan to vote. Make sure you have a plan to vote right now. What does that look like? Is that, you are going to go vote early with your mask on? Is it that you're going to go request your mail-in ballot and make sure to follow up, make sure it's coming, make sure you know exactly where it's going to get there, and then send it back right away? Making a plan to vote, and then making sure everybody around you has a plan to vote. Those are the big things that I think we can make sure every single one of us does right now. I know, Steph, you guys are also working on some really great poll worker.
Yeah. And just to add to that, I see some comments about putting the link in the chat. So we'll do that.
I'll do it right now.
Can RSVP and be a part of this. So the couch party has become our thing because COVID has taken over our lives and we cannot convene together. So instead of having big, large rallies where we're really getting fired up and excited about doing the work in our community to help our friends, family, and neighbors get registered and ready to vote, this is a time we can come together and fellowship. And we're going to have this awesome conversation that will kick everything off, as Jordan mentioned. But we want you to take it a step further and become a voting squad captain if you have time from all of your league obligations and responsibilities. But becoming a voting squad captain with When We All Vote is a really short process, really short application. And basically, you will be armed with organizing your community and holding your squad accountable. So 3 or more people can be a part of your voting squad. And we need way more voting squad captains. We have about 30,000 captains right now. And we're really excited about that number, but we want 50,000 so that we know that people around this country are organizing their communities and helping their friends and families with the resources. What we will do is have these moments like these couch parties where we will train you. So all the texting that Jordan mentioned, we're hoping to text over 300,000 voters. But you'll learn how to do it. It's really quick. And then the DJ will definitely keep you focused as you're listening to her and you're texting voters, and anybody can join in and be a part of this party. I know Jordan and I are going to kick it off, kick the conversation off on Thursday. We're definitely going to have a glass of wine. We already talked about that. So we encourage you to bring your wine because you can still text with a glass of wine or two to make it a really fun evening. Another thing is our My School Votes program is so critically important, as, so many things have changed in our public school systems or even our private school systems that, your kids are at. Are they getting civic engagement? Or do they have these random moments where you're like, let's do a mock election? So civic engagement is so critically important to teach at a young age so that kids and teenagers grow up understanding the importance of it. And our My School Votes program has a curriculum for K through 12 that teachers and others can adopt and bring into the school. And then we also work with 18-year-olds to make sure that they're registered. Zena mentioned, Jordan mentioned millions. It's about 4 million people who turn 18, okay? So we want to make sure that those kids are registered and ready to vote. So joining the My School Votes program is helpful. And then if you have an organization besides, what you're working with the Junior League, if you wanted to get involved, let us know. We have a number of corporate partners, a number of community partners at the table. It's pretty easy to sign up. When you go to our website, just look at the tab, the Take Action tab, you'll find all of our volunteer opportunities. And I can't stress enough the making a voting plan that Jordan mentioned. I think that we all let time kind of get away from us, and we say, okay, well, I know I'm going to vote, but you don't necessarily talk to yourself and figure out how. And sometimes what we do is we put ourselves in situations where we make it impossible, and then we don't end up showing up. Something happens. So writing that plan down, figuring it out, and making sure you're doing it early. And look at October as the entire election day month. It's not just on November 3rd. That is the final day, but you got an entire month, depending on what state you live in, to either vote early, or if you wanted to vote by mail, you absolutely can do that. And there's a multitude of ways to turn your ballot in, not just through the United States Postal Service, but also through drop boxes. You can also take it to your polling places. But I just want to remind people that, yes, the Postal Service obviously they need to be funded. So everybody, my mother likes to send cards to her grandchildren all the time. So let's let those get there on time. But 10 billion pieces of mail are mailed during the Christmas season. So our postal workers are very focused, and I know they can handle it. But Zena, I don't want to take fully over, but these are multiple ways, on my earring just fell, on how you can get involved and join our efforts.
No, that's fantastic. And I'm glad I think I could see that there were slides being shown, and I'm trying not to look at the chat because it then distracts me, but I could see people wanting to know more info. And I know that both of your social media accounts, your organizations have a lot of this as well. So that's great. We all have to get involved. So those are the questions from me. Now we have a few minutes, and I'm going to just ask you a few questions from our members. So I'm just going to turn a little bit here. So the first question, because we've talked a little bit about race, etc. And I'll ask Stephanie this question. So this is from Noelle Hutchins, Kelso, Junior League of Huntsville, Alabama. Your question is, how does the women's suffrage movement reconcile intersectionality, and what does the right for women to vote and the persuasion of both the Black and white female vote have on modern society? You're on mute.
Sorry, I was saying that's a really deep and great question. I think that the centennial, I think I mentioned this at the top, it's so important now. I think it's Oprah, or maybe it was Maya Angelou. Somebody said this. I don't know why I'm mixing them up, but when you know better, you do better. And we know that there are so many women that were a part of the suffrage movement. There's so many women that are still a part of, moving women forward. But and we obviously know that they were not written in the story. My mother read Ain't I a Woman by Sojourner Truth to me, her autobiography. So I had to learn these things growing up, but I know a lot of kids didn't get that. And this is our chance to kind of right that wrong. Moments like this, when we can talk about everybody's place in the movement. It wasn't just the few that always get the recognition. It was way more than that. And every woman actually played a role. And in fact, the abolitionist movement played a role in the suffragist movement. They saw that movement take hold, be successful, and then they try to replicate that for women in voting. And it worked. So all of these things kind of build on each other. And when it comes to, women and voting. And I think the second part of the question was about like women's votes, or like Black women?
Yeah, yes, Black women and white women's votes, basically their persuasion on modern society. So I think basically how are, being allies for each other,
Yeah.
perhaps more so than when it was, in 1913.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's totally different now. I mean, from the civil unrest that we have seen in this country over the last couple of weeks, what I've been so inspired by is to see all of these women together. Groups of moms protesting together, groups of women standing together, regardless of race or background. And I mean, it's a cheesy saying. We've always seen this, but we are absolutely stronger together. And we're stronger together when we recognize that everybody has a different walk of life, but everybody deserves respect. Everybody deserves opportunity. And inspired by John Lewis, thinking about the way that he lived his life, he would always say that, when you see something that's wrong, say something, speak up. And I think that we're living in a moment where people are speaking up more so than ever before. Nothing is perfect, right? But it's so critically important that we as women sit down with each other and have really real conversations about our lives and about ways that we can work together more strategically, more thoughtfully, more respectfully. There's so many ways in which we can enhance our relationships with each other. And one of those ways is at the ballot box by thinking about your sister while you were there, your sister from another mother, whoever that person is, and respecting, their experience as well. So there's so many, we've made strides, nothing. And I just have to repeat this because I think that we get really impatient with where things are. And I know that I do too. And we work really long hours and you don't always see, the benefits right away. But it's not necessarily for us to see it. This is our journey to make sure that the next wave of women coming behind us have it better. They have more opportunity. They're not mansplained at the table, at the desk. They can strive and be whoever they want to be. They can have a family. They can have a career all at the same time. They can take a break if they wanted to. So I think that it's our job to figure out what is this little piece that we can do better together. And then also, how are we strengthening our relationships with each other? And how are we being our sister's keeper in a multitude of ways?
Fantastic. That's actually our sort of mission or mantra, better together. So Junior Leagues, we're all about that, which is great. Thank you. Jordan, this is a question from Catherine Riggle, Junior League of Collin County. Voting should be a nonpartisan issue with everyone benefiting from all eligible voters to cast their ballots. Yet it's been politicized in recent history. How can we work across party lines to ensure that everyone has access?
That's such a great question. And I think, part of the reason when we all vote and the United States of Women do all of this work together as nonpartisan organizations is because we really want to make sure that everyone has access to the ballot box, regardless of political affiliation. We really want to make sure that everyone has that access. And for us, that means just really making sure that, there are enough polling places. There are enough ways for people to request their ballots. There are enough hours for people to vote if they, if they have to work during the day when there's voting hours, like thinking about all of the ways that every single different group of people can vote. And to me, the way to work across party lines often in all of these sort of scenarios is really that we need to listen to each other. What Steph just said is so right. And it really actually is a thing that I think is so important across any time we're talking to somebody who may be in any way different than us, right? Is to spend a little bit of time listening instead of talking. And so for us, I think when we're really talking about how we can work across party lines to make sure there's access to voting, we have to be telling the stories of people's voting issues. We have to be telling the stories of people's voting successes. And we have to really think about how, Stephanie said, we can be our sister's keeper. We have to think about, I want to make sure that Stephanie can vote in Atlanta tomorrow or whenever Steph's going to vote, probably not tomorrow. But when Stephanie makes her plan to vote, I want to make sure Steph can vote in Atlanta, and Steph wants to make sure I can vote in Washington, D.C. And I want to make sure you all can vote in whatever city across the country that you are in. And really thinking about, we all have a more representative democracy when we are letting everyone vote, when we are making sure that everyone's voices are heard. And so continuing to have that conversation by telling the stories of people's lives and really making sure that we are actually talking to one another. This all starts there. there, because we're never going to have these conversations if we're just yelling at each other in partisan ways. It's much better if we have interpersonal conversations to really make sure that we understand each other. And you're much more likely to empathize with someone if they're someone that you're having a real conversation with. And so I think, that's the start for me on any time we're talking about making sure we're working together across party lines in a nonpartisan fashion, is really listening and really talking to each other interpersonally. And the same thing is true about voting.
And can I just jump on that a little bit? Because
Please.
I think this is really important. And whoever asked this question, you're exactly right. Like, for some reason, voting has become partisan, which is like making, to me, the fireworks on 4th of July a partisan thing. Like, what? It's celebrating who we are as Americans. It's celebrating our democracy. It makes absolutely no sense. There is nothing partisan about voting. And if you think that there is something partisan about it, then I would suggest that you check yourself and you ask yourself, why do you feel that way? What are you afraid of? And why do you feel that voting should be partisan when it should be everybody's right, I would think. And if people are creating barriers, then why? And I think that what we have to realize too, as American people and as voters, that our voices are just that powerful that some people don't want you to use it. And voting is such a powerful tool that you have to make it complicated. You have to scare people away. You have to make them jump through hoops and hurdles. But that, to me, should only give us more confidence that we'll do whatever it takes to use our voice to make sure that, no matter what, like, okay, you requested a ballot, it didn't work. You call the election protection hotline and say, hey, this is what's happened. You get advice from a lawyer. They tell you how to proceed. Or you say, I'm going to make a different voting plan. Or if you call or you check your voter registration status, for some reason they say you're not registered. Again, you can call that election protection hotline. They are available 7 days a week to make sure that you are able to make your voice heard in each and every election. So don't allow barriers to stop you. Don't allow confusion to confuse you, but rather stay focused. We have under 80 days until this election. That is no time. So it is so important that everybody is making their preparations and plans now. But there is absolutely nothing partisan about voting. And a big part of our mission at When We All Vote is to shift and change the culture around voting. That's why Ms. Obama did not want it to be a partisan organization, because she wanted it to be bigger than one person, bigger than one election, bigger than one party. It is about culturally shifting the way that we think in this country about making our voices heard in each and every election and ensuring that we are civically engaged. So it's important for you to carry all of that with you as well. And if you hear somebody saying that voting is partisan, challenge them. Well, what do you mean by that? Why don't you want them to vote, or that person to vote? What? That doesn't make sense. So we all should, I think we pride ourselves on having free speech. Well, voting is a part of your free speech. You're allowed to voice your opinion on so many different things in the ballot box, and it's everybody's right, and it's everybody's prerogative how they vote. So we should definitely make sure that we're doing all that we can to help dispel that myth, because that's just not true. And we shouldn't allow ourselves to be manipulated by people to think that that is valid in any way, shape, or form.
Well, I will say that while you were both answering that question, I saw an awful lot of preach. Absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. So I feel like that's the mic drop right there. And I totally agree with you. And I just looking at the time, because, somebody will tell me you're running over. But I want to thank you so much, both of you, for your candor and your insight. This has been amazing. I would clap for you, but I'm holding my phone. But everyone else, hold up your hands, clap, or if you've got the reaction button, clap, because that was just fabulous. You two are just, I feel so fortunate to have just been able to spend some time with you. Thank you so much to our Junior League members for your thought-provoking questions. that you sent in and all of the chat. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of them, but obviously there will be follow-up. Stephanie earlier said something about women outvoting. I saw something recently. Women have been outvoting men in every presidential election since 1980. So if you are wondering what additional actions you can take at Junior League to help other women get motivated to vote, join the 138 leagues that have already signed up for our Mo to Vote program in partnership with Vision 2020 Votes. Please contact info@ajli.org if your league needs more information about how to participate. And thanks again. And now I'll hand it back over to our AJLI president, Bet Williams, to close out our evening.
Thank you, Zena, for guiding us through that incredibly inspiring conversations while the heavens thundered and opened up around you. We really appreciate your perseverance. And Stephanie and Jordan, thank you for the time and talent you are giving to make the world a better place and for sharing that with us with less than 80 days to go. We're honored that you chose to spend some of that valuable time with us. It is a great night when the conversation includes phrases like better together, free speech, opportunity, voice, public good, gender equity, civic engagement. And I have a new one now, which is a voting plan. So I want to take a quick moment to bring us back to our theme this evening and for the year, which is better together. And this takes on even more meaning after listening to tonight's panel discussion, because we are indeed our sisters' keepers. So as an organization, we're at our best when we experience collaboration among league members, individual leagues, and between leagues and the association. And as Mandy said, when women lead, we get the job done. And all issues are women's issues, as has been pointed out. So tonight, we are really tickled that we had more. Some of you have asked about the attendance tonight. We had more than 4,400 women sign up, and that was representing 262 junior leagues. One of the statistics I am most tickled about is that all 4 countries were represented tonight. So we're spreading impactful ideas and actions across our organization, but those connections between us and other organizations like When We All Vote and the United States of Women is what is truly magical about being better together. So thank you all for your time with us tonight, especially Stephanie and Jordan again. But I also want to thank Charlita Hatch, president of the Junior League of Charlotte, for making this connection and bringing this opportunity forward. We are very, very grateful to the Junior League of Charlotte for being a co-sponsor this evening. So thank you for being with us, and we look forward to more events with all of you. Thank you.